this finally be the time Republicans turn against the NRA's money? I mean, President Biden is right. I hope you had an opportunity to watch his speech yesterday. If you haven't, it's worth going to YouTube and finding the whole thing. It was, I don't know, 8-10 minutes, something like that. It brought me to tears. And it takes a lot to bring me to tears. I just, you know, he so understands the grief these parents are experiencing, having lost his own daughter as a child and his wife and his son as an adult. And he came right out and said, when are we going to take on the gun lobby? This is all about the gun lobby in the United States. And of course, it's all about the gun lobby because it's all about the Supreme Court having changed the rules of the game with the Bellotti decision, the Buckley decision, the Citizens United decision, saying that, hey, it's just fine. If an industry wants to own politicians, they can do that. You know, back in 1996, in a little island off the coast of Australia, Tasmania, it's part of Australia, there was a mass shooting. Over 30 people were massacred by a guy with an AK-47, as I recall, you know, an assault weapon. And Australia said, whoa. Now, this was like the 4th or 5th mass shooting they had in the previous 5 or 6 years. And their Supreme Court had not ruled that the gun industry in Australia could own politicians. In fact, quite the opposite. You can go to prison in Australia for corruption if you take money from an industry and vote there, you know, if you trade money for votes, which is perfectly legal here in the United States, thanks to the Supreme Court. Now, I shouldn't say thanks to the Supreme Court, thanks to 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court. Let's be very clear about where all this is coming from. Democrats have been trying to get reasonable gun control in the United States for 40 years. It's always been opposed by Republicans. Yes, there are a few Democrats who are in the pockets of the gun industry, too. Their numbers are shrinking. But it's the Republicans who are blocking this every single time. So anyhow, Australia said enough, and they outlawed a whole bunch of different kinds of weapons. They tightened up their concealed carry laws. They did a nationwide buyback program where they bought back hundreds of thousands of guns at full retail. So, you know, nobody was hurt by losing their guns, financially anyway. And the people in Australia were enthusiastic to do it. And guess what? It pretty much ended mass shootings in Australia. There have been a couple since then, but that, you know, it wasn't like anything like they had before. Here in the United States, the states that have the loosest gun laws have the highest rates of gun homicides and suicides, the highest rates of gun deaths. It's very simple. The more guns there are, the more gun deaths there are going to be. Guns are a product that is manufactured for only one purpose, or at least these weapons of war, like this kid used in Texas yesterday to shoot up a classroom. That and the pistols, by and large, that are also used, or the semi-automatic pistols, they're designed to kill human beings. That's what they're designed for. Yeah, there are, you know, hunting rifles and, you know, blunderbusses to go after elephants and deer rifles, and I get all that. But those are not the weapons that are being used in these mass shootings. The ones that are being used in these mass shootings are the ones that were, by and large, banned from 1996 to 2006, after Bill Clinton got through the assault weapons ban, and George Bush let it lapse in 2006. They are weapons of war. Over at Daily Kos, well, actually, it's from the Brady Project. They're listing all the money that all the politicians have taken. As I mentioned, I'll go through the whole list in a couple of hours, but just to give you a sample, Mitt Romney's at the top. He's taken over $13 million from the gun industry. Richard Burr, the senator from, I think, North Carolina, I'm pretty sure, maybe South Carolina, one of the Carolinas, he's taken $6 million from the gun industry. They're at the top of the list. We have been through this over and over and over again in America. Is this going to be our Tasmania moment? You know, there was the mass shooting in Tasmania that woke up the Australians. Or is this just, are we just going to be back to normal in 3 or 4 days? We had a mass shooting last week that was racially motivated. We have a mass shooting this time that was, another kid committing suicide and going out in a blaze of glory. In his own mind, of course. And Friday, Donald Trump is going to speak at the NRA in Texas, 300 miles from where this shooting just happened. And Ted Cruz and Kristi Noem, the governor from South Dakota, who wants to be president someday, at the NRA's celebration of gun rights in America. But you know what? There will be no guns in the hall because the NRA does not allow people to carry guns into their parties. 20 years ago, car accidents were the leading killer of children in the United States. Today, it's guns. There are so many things that we could do about this. We could start out by putting back into place the assault weapons ban and buying back these weapons out of our society. Semi-automatic pistols, semi-automatic rifles that are not designed for hunting. Number one. Number two, universal background checks. There's legislation that's passed the House of Representatives. The Democrats passed it. It's being blocked by a filibuster in the United States Senate. The other thing that I've been saying for years is why don't we treat guns like cars? You have a right to drive a car, but it's not an unlimited right. Your car has to be registered with the government. That registration has to be renewed every year or every 2 years, depending on the state you live in. So if anything, if the car is stolen or if the car is used in a crime, we know who owned it. You have to prove that you are proficient at driving and that you know the laws with regard to driving with a written test and a driving test to get a driver's license. And you have to have liability insurance. We could do these with guns. The Second Amendment doesn't prohibit any of those things. In fact, the word regulated only appears in the Constitution one time, and that's in the Second Amendment. I mean, we have lived with these rules for driving, for cars, for 100 years. And what has it done? It's made it safer. The only city in America that's taken this seriously is San Jose, California. Last year, they put into law liability insurance requirement for people who have guns in the city. The researchers who are trying to figure out, what the dimensions of gun violence in the United States are so limited ever since 1996 because of the Dickey Amendment that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and other research agencies literally cannot search a digital database of gun deaths and gun shootings in the United States because it's against the law. Everything has to be written down on paper. This is how insane it is here in the United States, thanks to Republicans in Congress and a few Democrats, I'll give you that, taking tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, $15 million just this year that the gun industry, the lobbyists for the gun industry have spent. What are we going to do about this? When are we going to do something about this? Steve Dettelbach is Biden's nominee for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. He's going to appear before the Judiciary Committee in the Senate today. Republicans are blocking him because they say he's a fan of gun control. Oh, my God. I mean, this is just nuts. The California Senate just passed a law like the Texas abortion law, where you can go after people who sell ghost guns. It's a start. But, 1 month after the Sandy Hook shooting, a record 2 million guns were sold. This mass shooting yesterday, it's going to increase gun sales in the United States. Smith & Wesson stock is up 1% this morning.